one of the...
All right, planning board. We are live. We are recording. Phone lines will remain off. Go for it.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the East Hampton Town Planning Board's work session and regular meeting of March 11th, 2026. Do we have a public hearing tonight?
No.
We do not. All right, cross that out. We have a couple of work sessions. We have a few items for a regular meeting. It is not the most ambitious schedule, so we have some time to play with, but we're going to jump into it and start with Wayne Scott Green, Hampton's Pride Project site plan. The applicant is in the room, I see. And let's see, Aaron, you're going to take this for the planning department, right? Okay. And John, this will be you for the board. So go ahead, Aaron.
This is the Wayne Scott Green Hampton's Pride Project site plan. It was last reviewed 1 month ago on February 11th. Some background information. A site plan application has been made to construct a number of accessory structures, create a monument at the town-owned park known as Wayne Scott Green, also Del Mastro Memorial Park. The project proposes this space to be a celebratory outdoor social area, a marker to LGBTQ plus history, and a memorial garden for those who lost their lives to AIDS on the East End. Structures that are proposed include a 14-foot tall raised platform, a 14-inch tall raised platform of roughly 32 by 34 feet, or 1,088 square feet, and a 5-foot tall monument of 7.5 by 7.5 feet, or roughly 56 square feet. The project is situated on the corner of Montauk Highway and East Gate Road in Wayne Scott. It is within the CB Central Business zoning. It is 100% cleared of naturally occurring vegetation. It contains a 12-space parking lot as well as walkways and a small roof pavilion with a picnic bench. This site abuts residential properties to the north and south, although all but one of those properties is across the roadway, and the commercial property is to the east and west. During the previous review on February 11, 2026, the planning board issued some comments for the applicant to respond to if necessary. The first comment was the board found the general inaccessible. As previously stated on February 11th, there was a review, and the board agreed that the general layout is acceptable and no further action is required. The board agreed with the planning department that the site plan elements listed in the planning department memorandum as recommended to be waived should be waived. A list during the previous review was given, and as recommended to be waived, they were waived. The items include topography, drainage, existing parking area, and details for the proposed walkways. Saying that the fire marshal agrees unnecessary, no further action is required. The board agreed with the planning department that the following items recommended to be provided should be provided. For the site plan, those items were a proper title, a scale, a zoning district, property line setbacks for proposed structures, information pertaining to ADA compliance, information pertaining to drainage, if required by the town engineer, and differentiation between existing and proposed structures. For the landscaping plan, what was needed was a proper title and the fencing for other structures used for screening, names of plants, so species, including common and Latin quantities, height, and spacing. These were addressed. The applicant submitted a revised site plan and a revised landscaping plan upon review of all aspects requested. All aspects requested have been amended. No further information is needed regarding drainage. Per town engineer report, and the application is referred to fire marshal for review. Currently, the planning department has no objections to the revised plans, and the planning board to review these plans to determine if they find them adequate. This application was referred to the fire marshal, and on March 2nd, a report was given by the fire marshal. They found the proposed project is ADA compliant, and the Wayne Scott Green Revision 4 shows ADA compliance with the proposed new project. In conclusion, the planning board should discuss whether any additional information is required regarding the landscaping plan, site plan, or other part. If the board agrees that no additional information is required, then the application is complete and ready to be scheduled for a public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Does the applicant wish to be heard?
Okay.
Oh, please come up. name and address for the record, please.
Jason Lagran, 8 Jonathan Drive, East Hampton, on behalf of the Wayne Scott Green project. I just wanted to clarify that the height of the deck is 14 inches. That was 14 feet.
Oh, does it say 14 feet? Okay.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That'd be different. That would be different, right? Ladders would be required. Yeah.
Other than that, unless you have any questions.
Okay.
To clarify.
All right, good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. So, John, would you like to lead our discussion?
I agree with the planning department that all necessary documents have been satisfactorily submitted. I don't know if we need to make a correction, the 14.
It actually says inches. I think it was
It does
just
say
read
inches
wrong.
in the,
Yeah, so-
So as far as I'm concerned, we're ready to head to public hearing.
Any other?
We've got questions.
We do. Yeah. Did you have those? Let's just see if anybody else has anything else to comment on or say about the project. Are we all good? Okay, so we'll go to the questions then. Does the planning board find the revised site plan and landscaping plans adequate?
Yes.
Yes. Is the site plan application complete and ready to be scheduled for a public hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, all around. Okay. So we're good. Passed and carried. We are ready to schedule a public hearing. So we'll have that resolution on at our. Oh, we have it here tonight, don't we? Okay. So we're going to actually do it right here in real time.
All right, so a public hearing is hereby scheduled to be held at Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, on April 8th, 2026 at 6:30 PM, or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider the application of Wayne Scott Green Hampton's Pride Project Site Plan at premises identified on the Suffolk County tax map as parcel Suffolk County tax map number 300-197-1-40.1. Files can be viewed and comments can be filed in accordance with the specifics in the public hearing notice, which appears as part of the meeting record tonight and will be published in the paper of record no less than 10 days before said hearing date. The board will then vote to adopt the resolution to schedule a public hearing for the first application before rereading the script for the next application. That's not supposed to be read.
Okay. Do you move a motion, please, to adopt?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the scheduling the public hearing.
All right, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. See you on the 8th. Thanks, guys. Okay, our next matter is Longhouse Reserve. Chris Stecker, that is you for the planning department, Lou for the board. I see the applicant is here. So Chris, walk us through your memo, please.
So this is going over the Longhouse Reserve semi-public facility site plan. It's a second review for the board. It was last reviewed at February 5th of last year. This is just showing the parcel. It's about 15.1 acres in East Hampton. It's zoned A5 residence. And current improvements on the 2013 certificate of occupancy include the 6,166 square foot two-story residence, a lap swimming pool, 600 square foot shed, various patios, walkways, and artworks throughout the property. There's also a 1,012 square foot one-story building which serves as a museum visitor center with the restrooms and a store. Some existing structures are not shown on the CO. These include a shed, carport, storage containers, and bamboo fencing. Parcels within the South Fork Special Groundwater Protection Area. It's a critical environmental area, and the southern portion of the property is within the agricultural overlay district. I'm just going to pull up the site plan to go over the proposal. So the application has been revised and no longer involves changing the use from a residential museum to a semi-public facility. Now the proposal is to improve parking and circulation for the existing residential museum use. There are also various existing structures that will require approval, and those are the containers, shed and carport that I mentioned over there. The proposal remains a type 2 action pursuant to SECRA and Chapter 128 of the Town Code. No further SECRA review is required. Now to just go over the planning board's comments from the review last year. The planning board commented that the applicant should clarify the parking layout and increase the amount of parking if necessary. And the revised plan shown here and calculations were submitted. The planning department notes that the submitted calculations appear to align more with the parking requirement for a semi-public facility, which is not reflective of the residential museum use that is proposed to remain. The revised submission should correct this discrepancy, to correct the parking requirement, and the appropriate parking requirement for a residential museum is listed in our report. Also shown here, there's a tree within the drive aisle adjacent to parking space 10 that reduces the width to lower than the 24 feet that's required by the code. So the planning department recommends that that tree be moved to provide a compliant drive aisle. Next was the board commented that the applicant should clarify the lighting scheme for the property and provide a comprehensive lighting plan. No response was provided in the planning department notes. So although the previous review mentioned that a comprehensive lighting plan was required, the board does have the authority to waive this requirement, and it now appears that there is no proposed lighting. And the existing lighting in the parking area appears compliant, so provided the applicant confirm that there is no proposed lighting, we recommend waiving this requirement. Next was that the board agreed to waive the requirements for improvements to the parking areas for the requirement to provide dust-free stalls. And the applicant since revised the plan with gravel where wood chips were previously proposed for the parking spaces. So that's where that came from. But the planning department notes that the submitted plan doesn't indicate the surface materials consistently for spaces 1925. You can see a zoom in here. This is a green space, and it just appears that some of these spaces, that part of them almost appear as if they're proposed with green space. I'd imagine that they're all proposed as gravel, but we just want the applicant to confirm and revise it. One space should not be made of more than one material. Next was just a comment about the application fee. The board recommend that it be waived, and planning department notes that the applicant is working through that process. The board can continue to review it, but it can't be considered complete until the fee is waived or paid by the applicant. Next, we have an update regarding the fifth comment, which is that the applicant should address the gates and other structures within the scenic easement. The planning department memo indicates that the applicant should address gates and structures within the scenic easement. Since issuing the memo, the department has learned that the applicant has worked with the building department and the town attorney's office regarding this issue. All details on that are not available at this time, and the appropriate next step is for the applicant, building department, town attorney, and planning department to review the status of these structures and determine the necessary steps in terms of how they should be handled. So we don't have all the information at this time. They should work with the town to go through that issue. Regarding the existing conditions on the site, the department notes that according to aerial imagery, it appears that the gravel driveway and parking area was expanded in 2022 without necessary approvals. And the submitted plan appears to indicate proposed gravel in areas which are already improved with gravel, mainly around these catch basins to the south. It's already, there's already gravel there. And as mentioned, there's also the existing structures, the containers, shed, and carport, which will require approval with this site plan. The planning department recommends waiving the requirement for elevation drawings of these existing structures. The ARB may request them in their review, but as far as for the site plan review, we feel that it's only necessary to provide the area of these structures as well as the setbacks between to show compliance for separation between accessory buildings. So the revised submission must accurately indicate all proposed work and existing improvements including the unauthorized expansion of the driveway, and coverage calculations should be provided. We also recommend that a certified survey of the existing conditions be provided, and this would help us evaluate the total amount of land disturbance involved. So next is regarding the use classification, and just a reminder now it's proposed to remain as a residential museum, whereas in the previous submission it was proposed to convert to a semi-public facility. So the board should review the town code definition of a semi-public facility, which is included in our report, which details a predominantly public character. This should be compared with the town code definition of a residential museum, which is an accessory use that permits an operation very similar in nature, but only where specific standards are met, including the presence of a single family residence on site as the principal use. The board should also note that this property is encumbered by a large lot easement from 1986 in favor of the town, which prohibits structures other than one single family residence as well as accessory structures. The planning department and town attorney reviewed this easement and determined that it would need to be modified for a semi-public facility to be permitted on site, and modification of the easement would require a public referendum, given that it's deemed a conservation easement. Another potential issue is that semi-public facilities fall into the category of residential community facility uses in the town code, which prohibits these uses except parks on sites partially within the agricultural overlay district, which is applicable here. Therefore, relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals or a change to the zoning map to remove the agricultural overlay designation would be needed for this, for a semi-public facility to be allowed on a property in this district. The site is already approved with a residential museum use as mentioned. There's no need for a change of use provided the site operates in a manner consistent with the special permit standards, past approvals, and the definition of a residential museum, which is included in our report. This includes maintaining the single family residence on site that is open to the public on a limited basis. The applicant should confirm that the site is operating accordingly, and then the board should discuss whether they believe it is appropriate for the application to move forward under its existing use as a residential museum. Also, the applicant should confirm the total gross floor area being used as part of the residential museum. The planning department notes that the revised parking calculations should provide the amount of interior exhibit space dedicated to the residential museum, but the applicant should also provide the total GFA for the entire museum, which would include areas like restrooms. According to the 2013 CO, it appears the only interior space approved as a residential museum is the 1,012 square foot museum visitor center. Should any existing improvements or proposed be considered a substantial expansion of use as defined by the town code for the residential museum use, then special permit approval would be required, and any special permit for a residential museum would require compliance with general and specific standards in the town code. Lastly, on the use, the project title, Longhouse Reserve Semi-Public Facility Site Plan, no longer aligns with the proposal, and the department recommends that the applicant consider renaming the application. Just very quickly, the engineer agreed with the comment about the tree in the drive aisle, that should be removed. Upon satisfying that and any issues that the planning department has, engineering approval is recommended, and the fire marshal signed off on the project on February 5th and noted that the proposal is ADA compliant. As far as other review, architectural review board approval is needed if lighting is proposed, and will be needed regardless for the existing structures needing approval. Suffolk County Planning Commission review is to be determined based on the total amount of land disturbance once we have more detailed plans. So in conclusion, the application is incomplete pending the revisions needed to address the issues mentioned. The applicant should remove the tree from the drive aisle, submit revised parking calculations, and confirm whether lighting is proposed. Parking spaces 19 to 25 should be revised with a consistent surface material. The applicant should coordinate with the town to review the status of the structures in the scenic easement area to determine the next steps. Certified survey should be provided Revisions must be made to the site plan to accurately indicate proposed and existing structures needing approval. The applicant should confirm the site's operating in compliance with past approvals. Revised submission should include the total GFA of the residential museum, and the applicant should consider changing the project title. Board should discuss these issues and determine whether they agree and if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Does the applicant wish to be heard? Before you start, by the way, I just want to say that, we know there's a lot of cleanup involved in here, right? So everything that we kind of brought up at the February meeting from last year is back here again. We know that there's been progress, that we know that there's been some decisions made. So just bear that in mind.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Martha Reichert for the applicant Longhouse Reserve. I'm from the law firm Toomey Latham Shea, Kelly Dubin and Quartararo, 33 West 2nd Street, Riverhead, New York. It's good to see everyone here tonight. We're back, and I thank Mr. Stoker for his very comprehensive review. A couple comments, which were when we were here last year, that submission contained surveys. The initial submission also contained GFA calculations and all those various things. So, after this meeting, I can confirm with Mr. Stoker what actually is missing from the file, because I believe that most of this has already been in the planning board's possession. I think one of the things that, and I'm joined here by Carrie Barrett from Longhouse, who can speak to some of the things that are important for Longhouse to get done. This project has sort of changed from when it was first submitted to right now. This is really about a parking plan that works for Longhouse, based now that it's been to the satisfaction of the town engineer in their review. We have appropriate drainage. There is no new lighting proposed. Longhouse is not open generally in the evening, so there's no need for additional lighting. If you could put up on the screen the 2013 site plan, I just want to address. It was included at the back of the town.
So this is the CO from that.
Right, and that's.
Is this okay?
Yes, that's.
I also have what was approved.
No, there's one that shows the parking. There we go, maybe that one.
This was what was approved in connection with the 2012 modification to
Yes,
the original.
that's what I meant. It's 2012 resulted in the 2013 CO.
Yep.
I'm going to walk away from the microphone for just a second, but I think the more you can zoom in on the parking,
Sure.
perfect. So this is the area that in the TAM was referring to, that it was changed. It wasn't really that there was an expansion of the parking area. It's that this 2012 site plan approval contemplated, here are your gravel parking spots, that this would remain a grass driveway with grass parking stalls.
Which are overflow stalls essentially, or?
No, they were all part of the approved required number of parking stalls pursuant to the 2012 site plan application. So they were always there, but in the planning board in 2012 said, let's leave them grass. And quickly that became untenable. So in fact, if you look at the photos that are in the TAM showing 2022, at that point, gravel had already been laid down because it got very muddy, et cetera. So there was really not an expansion of the parking area, but a change of the parking surface. So there's that one, right? So that's already parking. If you're in near maps right now and you want to go a little bit further, if you go back to like say 2014, you'll see that it is sort of dirt. And
Yeah.
So I just want to clarify that there wasn't an expansion or clearing. These were spots that were already approved for parking and gravel was added, but now, we're improving flow and different things, because in 2012, flow was changed again, the entrance and the exit were changed. And so I think as Longhouse, the longer it operates, the more we become aware of how to make it better. And I think the town engineer, and we've had multiple meetings with our former reviewer, Lisa LaCour, with Eric Shantz, with Tina, and as well as with the Wayner Group and our engineer, Drew Bennett, to go over that and reach the parking plan that we have now at this point. I think that with respect to the number of spaces, one of the special exception criteria for a residential museum is to show that you have adequate parking for all of your events, et cetera. And so I would submit that the number of spots that are shown here are, again, adequate for what is being used. The parking schedule is a minimum required, it's not a cap. And given the amount of time that we've put into, again, meeting with the town, with planners, with engineers, I would like to recommend to the board that we keep this plan as is. And because we have actually additional spots from the minimum that's required, I know that that tree is near and dear to Longhouse, to members of the board who are horticulturalists. It's a really important tree to Longhouse. It's been there for a very long time. I know I've been personally going to Longhouse for about 2 decades. Never had a problem maneuvering it in the parking lot. And so I think that there is a request, and if Carrie would like to get up and speak to it, is that that tree it's a specimen. It's worth saving. At the end of the day, Longhouse is also a public garden. And so protecting that tree feels like part of Longhouse's mission. And so we would ask the planning board to allow us to keep that tree.
Can you tell me how, I just want to get clear on the parking.
Sure.
I see, on the plan, I see 41 spaces. Is that the minimum required? I mean, I can calculate that is the minimum required parking that you need for the current layout that you have. But the planning department has said there's another table where you've calculated there's 47 spaces. Can you reconcile those differences?
I would probably need to talk to our engineer, only because it's a mathematical. Yes.
There's staff parking.
Well, there is also staff parking. There's staff parking.
The other spaces.
Those are the additional spaces. So if you go closer up to where the house is, you'll see those additional parking spots.
Not shown on the submitted plan.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
There's
so
another
They're
driveway.
shown on the
Yeah.
plan that this board has seen a year ago. Again, in anticipation of this meeting, we were specifically told by the engineers and Eric Shantz and Tina and Lisa LaCour when we met with them to just focus on this part, which is really the outstanding remaining issue for this board to review.
And that's the 41 spaces.
Correct. So there are spots up by the house closest to the entrance. In fact, there's also additional handicaps parking that's being put there, which is in alignment with ADA recommendations. There are handicap spots. So again, I'm just going to step away from the mic for a second. This area here has always had pavers because they're handicap, and gravel is not a handicap. It's not an ADA compliant surface. So those pavers have been there for a long time.
Thanks.
And then with respect to some of the other items that we need to clear up, such as renaming the plan, we can certainly submit those, but I would like to impress that springtime is here. Longhouse is been diligently and patiently waiting to do this, but their parking lot really does need to be resurfaced, and it would be lovely if we could proceed to a public hearing so that they can do the work.
I have a question.
Sure.
And you had mentioned that the facility is not open at nighttime. We have a family home in close proximity to Longhouse. And I had the impression from several years in a row that maybe you guys do weddings there and evening events occasionally in the summertime. So
those are all.
just to follow my point here, the parking for me is kind of a key aspect, because I do know for a fact that the parking, when you have an overflow situation, flows out on Hands Creek, and that can be a busy road, and there's no sidewalk, and it's dark. I just don't know how safe that is, but again, I know you guys are an important part of our community, and I want to be helpful here, but.
Sure, so I want to address a couple
Yeah.
things about that. It is not our parking overflow that happens on Hands Creek. What happens is oftentimes visitors come and they just park on Hands Creek. When there are special events, Longhouse has always made appropriate arrangements for parking. In fact, also making arrangements with the church to use the unused portion of the cemetery lot. So Longhouse has always taken, in accordance with their special permit applications, but also their site plan approval, to arrange for that overflow parking. What we can't control is what sometimes people just do, and they just park on the street, but that means they didn't come into Longhouse and we're directed of where to park. The second thing is, when there are evening events such as a wedding, et cetera, lighting is brought in for that, but the part of Longhouse's everyday operations does not require additional lighting. Again, there is lighting in the parking lot that is sufficient for all of those purposes when there are people there in the evening, but in general, Longhouse isn't open at night. It's meant to be toured during the day. And so that's why we don't have any additional lighting proposed. And also, I think it keeps with the residential character of the community, and also Longhouse's commitment to, again, keeping the lighting in balance with the aesthetic, and also not overlighting it in terms of pollinators and everything else for nature.
Just my point, I think you may have pointed this out, but just to repeat it for emphasis, that the process of getting a special permit for an event really requires you to, kind of lay out what it is you're going to do with the additional cars, right? And I've been to events there where we're ferried from a field across the road. There are all sorts of things that happen, right? And that are part of that process.
Yes,
right?
so again, to sort of just stress that when people do park on Hands Creek Road, they are outliers, they're not supposed to, and they're certainly not being directed to do that by Longhouse. Longhouse always makes provisions for overflow parking to, again, not have it be on Hands Creek.
Right. Okay.
Any further questions? And like I said, I also have Carrie Barrett from Longhouse as well, who can answer any questions you might have about day-to-day operations.
Yeah, actually, I have a question about the tree in the driveway.
Sure.
Is there protection around it?
There are four, I think they're probably 4x4 bollards. Fairly low profile, but they're there.
And do you know where the bollards are and how it constricts circulation?
I mean, I parked right next to it just before this meeting, specifically to try it out. I have a very large 3-row SUV. I had no problems maneuvering around it.
Okay.
And
there it is, right there, right here.
So there they are. And one of the things that we've been able to do is bring the bike rack here. So it actually creates a very, I think, pleasing area for the bike rack. The bikes are protected. The tree has these bollards right there. There's also some, again, I have always personally found it not to be difficult to maneuver, whether I'm parked alongside the tree or on the other side.
Right.
And it is a specimen, I believe it's a mulberry tree. And again, it's just an important part for Longhouse. It's not just a tree, it's important for everyone there.
Yep, I get that. This photograph is very helpful.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Any other questions? Stay close. Well, let's hear from Carrie, and then we'll take it up as a board.
Sure.
Martha's done brilliantly. I just want to thank.
Just state your name for the record, if you don't mind.
Carrie Barrett. I'm the executive director of Longhouse Reserve, and I'm grateful. This has been a long haul for us. We took the document from Lisa LaCorey from was it February?
Yes.
And have really ticked through all the boxes. We moved the deer fence, we redid the septic, we've been studying the parking, we've redone it, we've done new surveys, we have done our due diligence. The goal here, I'll just say, I'm an art historian, not an engineer or a lawyer. We just want to give private tours to the house. And that is within the museum provision. I'm enlightened to hear that we can maybe drop, thank you, the change of use application and go back to being a museum in a residential neighborhood and still get what we want. We want to operate as we are now, quietly, beautifully. The parking lot is part of the experience when you come in. We need it to be that way. And then we'd like on a limited basis on weekends, as soon as we can. We thought it would be this year, but it seems like maybe not. But we just want to be able to welcome people by a reservation to have tours of Jacqueline or Larson's house. That's all that I have to say. This has been, I'll say, I'm tired of, I could vent. This, the past 18 months has been expensive for us, time consuming for all of us. I have board members who have given money to repair this parking lot. They're waiting, saying, when is it going to be done? That's partly my job to say, I'm so delighted to be here tonight. They were excited that we would be here. So I truly hope that we can get to a public hearing, because Longhouse itself, I'm here with Jason Amos, our head of facilities and operations. We cleared the parking lot of everything we could. Mounds of things, extra bamboo, anything that was there in anticipation of really hoping that we would be able to do this during October and November in our slow season, so that by the time we open in April, the parking lot now is unmanageable. It's not safe, it's not beautiful, because of all that we've cleared. We know from our friends from BK Builders aren't here tonight, this will take us 3 weeks. And I implore you to let us do this before June. Otherwise, our season of, you talk about weddings and our gala and everything that's on our calendar, right now the parking lot is a mess. And that it's our own mess because we began to clear in anticipation that this would move forward. So I beg you, I implore you to let us do this in a way that is in keeping with everything that East Hampton wants to be. More parking spaces, more of what Martha, getting people into the lot, not on Hands Creek Road. We have valet people, you know, having proper bollards in place. We're ready to do all of it. And I have the money to do it. And people who are saying, when is it going to be done? So sorry if that sounds like venting, but I'm so passionate about having this parking lot. This is the first thing that people see before they come into the dunes, before they see the house in the distance, before they see the red garden. And our parking lot does not represent Longhouse at its best, not by any means right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
I actually have one more just technical comment that I want to make in response to some of the questions that were put on the TAM. This says proposed gravel. Green space means exactly that. It'll be landscaped. Right, so it's not that we're having two different materials where it says green space. Those aren't parking stalls.
So the issue is the border of the green space indicated here is to divide these spaces. So when you look at the plan, that's what we're asking for clarity on. Gravel, and then the green space is indicated within.
No, those
are curb stops, I think.
No, this green line that goes across.
Oh, I see.
You follow my tracer. So that's where it's not clear what the surface material is.
No, it's
It's a contour line.
gravel. I think those have to do perhaps with drainage, maybe.
Yep, it's just the same color and it was in the area indicated as green space. So that's why when we're looking at it, we're asking.
Yeah, no, it's, I think that's indicating something different from the stalls.
Yep, and then the area of proposed gravel, that's where there is gravel currently existing. So we just want the plan to clearly show what's proposed versus existing. So there's currently gravel where it's proposed, and then this was where it was not clear.
Well, those are existing stalls.
Yep, I understand that, and that these are the existing bumper blocks, and now they're being moved, and it was not clear.
I have a feeling that line is just, no, there's no difference in the surface material. All parking stalls will be gravel, and the new areas show proposed gravel. So those are existing. I think that line is indicating something different. Potentially the line, the former bamboo fence that was there. It's unfortunate it's the same color as the stalls, but it's not a delineation of the stalls.
I don't really understand it. That's exactly.
And then this is the area where there's proposed gravel, where there currently is gravel that exists. So that's just something that.
I believe it's wood chips.
Look the aerial here.
Because again, those are.
This is all gravel in these areas.
Right, because those are the former stalls that were approved under the 2012. Right, so if you go back to 2012, there were stalls all along that lane. And with the new parking, those stalls are being lost to create a circulation pattern.
Yeah, the 2012 plan shows those spaces all as grass.
Right.
Yep.
But we've established that over the course of time, that grass became very muddy and gravel was placed down.
Yeah, the only comment was that the proposed gravel should be indicated as existing where it currently exists.
All right,
It's mostly a technicality on,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anything else, Martha?
No, that's all I had left. And again, if we could, potentially, just an update, because I don't know if the planning department is aware of it, but we received an email from the town, from Anne Marie, I'm gonna mispronounce her last name, Lamprechter?
correct.
All right, good. Stating that the resolution for the town board to waive the public, the fees will be on the March 19th meeting
Oh,
agenda.
good.
Good.
Okay.
So-
That was one of my-
That's happening. And again, if there's anything else that we can, in anticipation of potentially scheduling the public hearing, we can get the minor things changed, like that line removed, clarify where proposed gravel is versus existing. Again, I think that it is hatched as proposed gravel because those parking stalls that were there that are now surfaced with gravel are being removed, and this is becoming part of this new flow corridor as opposed to the spots that were there. But we will do whatever the planning department wants us to make those revisions, and we can get them in certainly well ahead of the public hearing.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for committing to that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So before I turn it over to Lou to lead our discussion as a board about this, I just want to say that, I know this has been a long time in coming. There's a long gestation period, a long time since the February meeting last year. And as I said earlier, we're doing a lot of cleanup from that meeting. We need to make sure that everything that we brought up then has been addressed, even though to some of you, I think you feel like, well, that was addressed, So, we're here tonight to really make sure that we've dotted all I's and we've crossed all T's, and we're ready to go. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lou to lead our discussion.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, I do have some items that are cleanup type items, and I'll go through those first. I think the big issue is the use, whether it's a semi-public facility or a residential museum. I think that's the important one. And I'll save that for last. So let's go through the cleanup areas first. I think we covered the parking. I come up with the same calculation you did as 41. I think Chris came up with 42. I think that has something to do with the rounding calculation. So I think 41 or 42 is fine. As far as the drive aisle with the non-compliance, the width being non-compliant and the tree removal, I came in tonight deciding that I think the tree should have been removed in the interest of safety, but I changed my mind. I think trees are important. Looking at the picture that you showed, I really don't think safety is going to be an issue, which was my problem with removing the tree or remedying that by removing the tree. But I think it's more important that that tree stays alive. So that's my vote.
We appreciate that.
As far as the lighting plan, I agree that we can waive a full lighting plan. There's no exterior lighting is proposed, no new exterior lighting is proposed. But this should be a condition of approval, that there will be no additional lighting. Okay.
That's acceptable.
The expansion of the gravel driveway and unprotected, unapproved shed and carport containers, bamboo fence, I think they all require site plan approval, and a certified survey is necessary showing those.
That was all submitted last year.
Okay.
In fact, I put together a huge photo array for you guys of the carport and all of those structures, and we discussed them at the February work session.
So
Have there been any modifications since, I'm sorry, Lou, any modifications since then that should be reflected on a survey?
Well, that's Drew Bennett's site plan. Let me just ask and confer with Carrie. Were there any-
We screened them.
There's been a bamboo fence screening that's been put around them, and so, but it's just fencing. It's that sort of crisscross bamboo fencing.
Right.
They on the CO, those structures?
No,
No, for
so they're
2013.
not on the CO.
Okay.
We discussed this again at the February meeting last year. We added them to the survey, we did a photo array so that we could discuss them. They are necessary with respect to Longhouse for storage. One of the things that happens with Longhouses, it gets a lot of custom, large art pieces that are on loan seasonally. Those come in custom crates. They need to be stored somewhere during and so that's how those shipping containers are important for that. Same as the carport. If you look at the carport and the small shed, they've been there for a very long time, right? They are organically becoming part of the landscape. The carport clearly was designed by Jack. It fits with the architectural style of Longhouse. It repeats that peaked shape. And so they are important sort of back of the house structures in terms of they have lawnmowers in them. They really function as your basic storage sheds and storage for.
So, but do we have a survey showing all those?
You have a survey from last year, but one of the things that we can do certainly as part of a condition of approval or before we get to the public hearing is provide an updated one if you'd like, but it's definitely shown on the site plan. And this is a Drew Bennett site plan, but it's based on a Walbridge survey, so I don't have the full file with me right now to sort of say when was the last time the survey was submitted, but I do know because I personally handled the February meeting last year that we had in advance of that meeting submitted a survey showing those structures.
Okay, well, that could get worked out.
It's purely administrative, so we'll go through and make sure that you have it.
Okay.
Right, and the deer fence was moved during that time too, right? During this time since February of last year.
Correct.
Yeah, so we'll want to see that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Also, we need to know if the total GFA that's being used for the residential museum is not beyond the 1,012 feet building that you have. There's not going to be additional GFA museum space.
So
Can I clarify that question? Because we were talking about this earlier. So, part of the issue that sort of plagued us a little bit over the course of the last year plus has been this idea of what use. Are we going to go for the semi-public thing or not? The residential museum use actually has a different parking calculation, right, than the semi-public facility. Right. So there's a little bit of difference there. And part of it is predicated on the amount of exhibition space. Right. We're in the same kind of area of the number of spaces is pretty much what we've been talking about.
I mean, here's
but let's hear me out. So I do think that the quote exhibition space per se is really minimal because you're going to be touring the house, private tours of the house. This just occurred to me since our conversation earlier, which is really a very different thing than exhibition space. There is some downstairs, I believe, right, off of the portico that you've got. But I think that's the number that we'd like to have.
The 41 spaces is based on 1,012 feet.
Yeah.
Space.
Yes, exactly.
So if you have more than 1,012 feet, that changes the parking calculation at the very minimum.
Right, but Lou, that number that you're citing, I believe that is, are you talking about the first floor of the house or are you talking about the gatehouse and then?
It's the gatehouse.
It's the gatehouse.
Right, so that's separate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very different because that was all approved under site plan. That doesn't have, that's
But that, I believe, is what's counted, if I'm not mistaken, Chris, that the 1,012 square feet is what's listed as the residential museums.
Yeah, it's an error, it's an error.
This is to take it back all the way to.
We can get this is all in the
Yeah.
report.
Right, so that's, I'm just
Tours.
trying to emphasize why this question is important, that we do need some number for exhibition space,
You
right?
absolutely do. And again, if we go back to the very initial submission where we had floor plans for the first floor and showing square footage and analysis for that particular exhibition space and the ADA bathroom that was put
Yeah.
on the first floor, that is what the parking plan numbers were based on, working with our engineer and architects.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think it's gonna be sort of the same number.
I think it comes out to the same number as well.
Last year, we saw that? I don't,
I know,
I don't,
Martha, when was that submission? Was that part of last year's submission?
Oh, it was 2 years ago.
I don't.
Okay.
what is it again exactly? Take us through it one more time.
So our initial submission contained floor plans with floor area calculations, showing the area where we wanted to have indoor exhibitions of art and also providing an ADA compliant bathroom, all of which prompted the additional parking spaces that were added. And really, whether it occurs under a semi-public facility use or as part of the residential museum, the idea is the square footage of that additional area that would be added to the residential museum use it doesn't change under either use, right? Because it's a portion of the first floor where there would be interior exhibition space.
Right, the exhibition space square footage does not change, true, but the way in which parking is calculated for the two uses is slightly different. But anyway, let's not worry about it at this moment, unless you know off the top of your head what that number is.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I know that it was certainly, I mean, first, one of the things is that the residential museum use, when the use was first approved in 2006, applied to the entire grounds, right? And so that's something that if you look at the residential museum code, it doesn't contemplate a residential museum that is also a public garden. And so I think that the parking calculations for when the visitor center was built, the museum shop, the bathrooms, and now the idea of taking in this additional area, that was all calculated by Drew Bennett and the architect when we made this submission. So I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but we can certainly
But to
review that.
use numbers and then we'll move on. Up to 1,000 square feet of use, of museum use, requires 15 parking spaces. And then the other part is how many half-acre units over 2 acres. For each half-acre unit over 2 acres, you need one parking space. That calculates to 26 parking spaces. So 26 plus 15 is 41. The acreage is going to stay the same. That's not going to change. So you're always going to have that 26.
Correct.
Anything over 1,000 square feet of museum space, every 100 square foot over that 1,000, you will need an additional parking space. You're already at 41 now with the 1,000 square foot.
Correct.
So if you're going to go over, that's why I asked the question. If you're going to go over 1,000 square feet, for every 100 feet that you have over 1,000 square feet, you're going to need another parking space. So just remember that.
Right, but that was all taken into account with the additional spots.
Yeah, you have 47 though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So that was all.
So we're just saying, if it were 3,000 square feet, it
Right.
would be different, right? We're dealing with a different calculus.
Correct.
here, Right, that is what we're saying.
Absolutely, and
So answer the question carefully.
No,
Right.
right. I just want to say that the number of parking spots proposed and again, the square footage of the first floor, that was all addressed, and that was never an issue in our first two
Okay,
reviews.
well, let's hope that it's not an issue.
Right, I don't,
So what about coverage? That's another area. Do we have a survey that shows the proper coverage? Because the memo seemed to.
Yes, you have a survey that shows all the coverage. Again, the planning department has those surveys.
Okay. I thought the memo said that we did.
We can review applicants mentioning that a survey was submitted. I know the previous submission included a site plan based upon a survey, but we can review and make sure that it has the proposed existing coverage. The plan did change a bit, so there's a chance that we do need an updated plan with the proposed coverage, but we can review and work that
But
out.
we're getting an updated survey. We'll have updated coverage
Yeah,
numbers on it.
but in general, Longhouse is well
Yeah, I think we're
under
good.
coverage.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, the other question I had was the driveway and parking area expansion that took place that we saw on the photograph. Does that intrude or is near the scenic easement or the ag overlay?
No,
It's
at
not,
all.
okay.
The ag overlay is a very, very small portion at the very, very rear of the parcel.
Okay.
Nowhere near the parking, but also, as I explained before, it was a resurfacing of already approved parking stalls pursuant to the 2012 site plan.
Okay, I think those are all the items. So on to the big issue, which is this a residential museum or a de facto park, which would be,
I'm sorry, a park?
no, a de facto park, open to the public park, which would be a semi-public facility, which is what you originally were going to change the classification to.
So our use is not changing anymore?
I realize.
Sure,
that.
we're remaining with
The
the.
question is it truly a residential museum? We need to make sure that that's what it is. Because if it's more like a park, a public park, and over.
It's not a public park. I mean, Longhouse closes at night. Members of the public don't have access. People pay admission. It's not publicly owned in that sense. In fact, this is an issue that was reviewed by the town attorney's office back in 2006. And, there's no requirement for Longhouse to be open to the public, including under the large lot easement.
Okay.
So no, it's not a park in any way, shape, or form. A park is something that has to be dedicated either through express or implied use. But Longhouse is a private place.
I'm leaning towards agreeing with you, but I think it's important that you write a narrative explaining that, justifying that it's more of a residential museum and not a semi-public facility.
Well, so a
Which would
semi-public,
include the hours of operation, buses that come in, how
Sure,
many
that's-
people.
that's all part of the existing approved site plan. All of that information.
You have a narrative explaining all that?
Yes, in 2010, in 2012, so that's been a part. This isn't an expansion of the museum's operations, this is just a parking plan.
Yeah. Why did you want to change it to a semi-public facility? If it's been that way all along since 2012.
So in full candor, it was Eric Shantz's idea. We met on site several years ago with Nancy Marshall, with Tina, she was newly on board. Eric has a very long institutional knowledge because he was the planner assigned when the residential museum use was created. And so it was the idea that this would be the natural evolution of a residential museum as it changes over time. The reason why we are no longer pursuing the part of the application that sought to change to the semi-public facilities is because, as was identified earlier, we have to deal with the ag overlay district portion of the property. And so that will take some planning and reviewing, but because of those sort of technical barriers, there's no problem with remaining with our residential museum use, which was actually what Longhouse had intended from the very beginning when we started having pre-application meetings with the town attorney's office, with the planners, because we figured that we weren't ready to go to a semi-public facilities and wanted to retain the residential museum use. So we've kind of come around full circle because of the ag overlay district and potentially some of the issues with the large lot easement.
Right, that's your problem.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
This, as you say, this was created for you and for Lieber, basically, right?
Correct. And
So we didn't anticipate everything. So part of, what's been happening is trying to bring this,
Yes.
center all of this, right?
Right, so back in 2006, Longhouse originally applied to become a semi-public facility, and because Mr. Larson was still living there, you can't have two principal uses on a residential lot. So again, the residential museum was created as an accessory special exception use, which is sort of unique. So we're remaining within those parameters and continuing to operate the way Longhouse has operated now for over 20 years. But with a better parking plan.
Right. Well, as I said, a lot of this is cleanup too, right? And Eric is with us, by the way.
Oh, excellent.
Maybe he wants to chime in, but there.
He's hiding.
Right. There are a couple of criteria that we're really interested in, and maybe, Lou, this is a time to talk about.
Sure.
About the fact that if this is going to remain a residential museum, there needs to be a residence there, which simply means there needs to be a place where people can stay.
There is.
And there is.
Okay.
And
There's a kitchen,
Okay.
right? A residence under normal zoning is a structure that has cooking and sleeping facilities.
Okay. I'm
Right.
just,
And those things are remaining there.
Those things
Yeah.
exist.
The way that I understand it is a residential museum is supposed to be an accessory use to a single-family residence, open to the public only on a limited basis. Whereas the semi-public facility, if it's, that is usually more frequent public use across most of the site. And in substance, it's a problem because it heightens the tension with the ag overlay and the easement that you have on the property. It's a legal issue if it becomes a semi-public facility. But if it's clearly a limited public access with strong protection to the open space, which seems to be what you're saying it is, then it's more of a residential museum.
Right. Well, there's a residence. It meets all the technical criteria of a residence. Right, it has its commonplace accessory structures such as the lap pool, gardening sheds, but it also has the permitted accessory structures that come part of the residential museum use, such as the visitor center and the small museum shop.
right.
And all the art and sculpture that are there.
I would, following up on the other point that Lou was making about the definition, and we're just trying to get clarity and make
Yeah.
sure we're all on the same page here. We're not challenging your
No,
idea here.
I understand.
Yeah.
It's esoterically, I've spent a lot of time thinking about it and how to make it fit.
The definition of limited opening, I think the fact that you are not open for, the winter essentially, right, except the special occasions, your hours actually are limited, right? You're not open all day long. Nobody goes in.
Seasonally
There's
limited.
gates, all that kind of stuff, right? I think I would certainly be willing to say that's limited opening, right? That it qualifies.
absolutely.
Does everyone kind of
Yeah.
agree with that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I think those are really the two key things here.
Yeah, I think all those other items that we covered earlier are cleanup items, like we said. I think the big issue is this use classification. And I think you just need to have a narrative that describes and defines and justifies the use that you're going for, which is the residential museum.
So you want a narrative similar to what was submitted with previous site plan applications? Well, actually, special exception.
But I think we're going to touch upon this in the questions, right? The specific things that we want in the narrative. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Lou?
No, that's it.
Okay. Who else would like to ask questions, chime in, have an opinion?
First of all, thank you so much for kind of taking those of us who are newer on the board through the various iterations of this project. I appreciate it, and I appreciate that you guys have really worked with everybody and addressed most of the stuff. I am very comfortable with it remaining a residential museum use. I think that's exactly what it is. I love Longhouse as a resource for our community, and I think that, having it stay open as much as it is and having it, just upgrading the parking, like that's what we're really here for. I did have one question about the, I know that you guys mentioned you moved the deer fence back out of the scenic easement and that there was an agreement with the building department and the town attorney's office as to whether that stuff that is there, the deer, the cow.
Yeah, the grate and gate.
Yes, the grate and gate, thank you.
Sure. So the scenic easement allows driveways, and gates and cattle grates are within the driveway and are commonly part of driveways throughout East Hampton.
Yes, but
Maybe.
not technically in the code.
The ARB approved it.
Oh, they did, okay.
The ARB, Ed, you can speak to this, thank
We're
you.
aware of it, yeah. We are aware, yeah.
We are aware,
Just if you're new, the ARB approved it and then came back later. Somebody else caught that it might have been an error.
So we just would need some sort of, something in writing from the building.
You have it
Okay,
all.
we have it.
Okay, that's all we're saying.
That's all we're saying.
Council can address that for you.
Okay.
Yeah, no, all we want is something from you for the file.
And I think I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think for us, us as, the newer members here, we want to make sure that the next new board, when we're no longer on it, everything is,
Yes.
I's dotted, T's crossed. There will be no questions like this coming up at the next review.
Comprehensive memorandum that was submitted to council and the planning department back in October.
Okay.
And actually, for that very express reason, went through the entire history from 2006 through the initial creation of the residential museum use.
Interesting, okay.
The first site plan, the modified
So
site plan,
that's
2012.
on me for not having read all that.
That's okay. The goal is so that, again, because people change, there's been a lot of turnover in the planning and building department, so that there is a document that memorializes and compiles some of these things.
That's all we want.
That's all, yeah.
So that's already in the
But just make it specifically about that issue,
about
the issue of the deer fence and the
deer fence.
gate.
Yeah.
Sure, we can put in something to button up what transpired.
That's all we
Yeah,
need.
that's all we need.
Council and
Gate.
Other than that, I think the tree should stay and all of the rest of the stuff is kind of the details, again, dotting i's, crossing t's. And thanks for your patience.
Oh, absolutely. I'm here to answer any questions that the board has. Longhouse is also near and dear to me, as it is to many people in the community.
Well, I think if no one else has any other questions or comments, we're going to ask ourselves some questions. Thanks.
I have one small note about the tree. I don't think the board has the authority to reduce the width of the drive aisle, so just if they're going to allow the tree to remain, that would be an issue for the one parking space.
For one parking space.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe it needs to be relocated or just removed, but just you won't be able to approve that parking space.
That's right. That
That's
would back
directly-
into it.
Exactly. I just want to make that note. Like if you're allowing the tree to remain, that doesn't mean you can approve the reduced drive aisle. Right. So everyone has that understood.
Can council opine on that?
I'm going to defer to Eric and the planning department on that one, but that is my understanding. That's
Yeah,
not
so what Chris is referring to is if you look at space number 10, parking space number 10, behind any perpendicular parking space, you need an access lane of 24 feet in width. And that entire lane has been designed to 24 feet in width, so the tree obstructs the lane behind parking space number 10. The applicants can remove space number 10, relocate it somewhere else, and be in compliance because you need, it's only behind the actual parking spaces. The drive aisle is supposed to have a unimpeded width of 20 feet, but I think that but that's really for access to a site. It's not access through a parking lot. And in fact, if we had diagonal parking spaces proposed here, the lane would be, I think, 12 feet is the minimum under some of them. So that's what Chris is getting at. That tree behind parking space number 10 prohibits a 24-foot width lane behind it, which is a code requirement.
Okay.
Okay.
But again, there are easy ways to fix that. Space number 10 can be relocated.
I mean,
Ended up on top.
I think we were discussing that we have more spaces than are required, so it doesn't really strike me as an issue.
Okay.
Great.
Good. So we're going to ask our questions then, in that case.
And yeah, and actually, I'm sorry, before the board goes into the questions, just because kind of to summarize from this conversation of what we need, because I think, as happens often when we review things, the questions don't align perfectly. So I have kind of 4 points here that I think we just went through, and I just want to kind of summarize what the planning department is saying, after that conversation. So I think the first thing that we would be looking for, and it's spread throughout some of the questions that you have, is a revised site plan that shows all of the proposed structures, among other things. So the container, those buildings that were referenced in the memo and that there was a picture of, label those as proposed. We want to see existing, label the existing gravel as existing, provide coverage calculations. The deer fence that is shown in the easement, I believe that was relocated. But basically, everything we've been talking about of inconsistencies in the site plan, whether or not, a structure is shown in the wrong spot, maybe there are structures on site that aren't shown, label everything that is proposed, including those accessory structures. Basically, all of that is a revised site plan that has all the existing and proposed conditions as they are today. That's one.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you want it as a single drawing, or would it be easier to have an existing and a proposed, just so that the lines don't get so confusing when you're looking at it? I mean, I know normally we do it all in one, but there's a lot happening here, so I just was wondering your preference.
You could do it either way, whatever.
And when you say site
as far as
plan,
we're concerned.
you mean a survey as opposed to something prepared by a site? I think of a site plan as either an architect or a,
Yeah.
Well, we do want a survey, yeah. We do. Yeah.
We have both, right? So we
Yeah.
have an engineer's site plan,
Yeah.
and then we can have a survey that shows existing and
Yeah,
proposed.
all right.
Yeah, that's perfect. A survey that shows existing conditions, but then this site plan just revised to show everything where it is today, so if that deer fence has been moved, illustrate it as such, illustrate everything that's proposed versus existing. Basically just a complete site plan, coverage calculations updated if they need to be. Parking calculations, but I'll get to that in a second. The second thing is identifying the interior exhibit spaces. It sounds like the applicant already did that. We apologize, planning department missed that in the record. But if there is a floor plan that identifies the interior spaces, that if it's in there, that's fine. If not, that should be submitted. But that's important because the parking calculation is derived from the amount of interior exhibit space. I would recommend that any area that's going to be open to the public be identified as exhibit space. For the board and the applicant, the code doesn't prohibit and doesn't limit the amount of space in the residence that can be exhibit space. It just requires that the resultant parking requirement be met based on the square footage. So, opening up most of the home as exhibit space is not something that's prohibited in the code. You just need to provide the adequate parking for it. And then that kind of brings me to the third point, which is revising the parking calculations to reflect the residential museum use, not a semi-public facility use as they do right now, and basing those off of the lot area and the exhibit space, how the parking calculation is crafted. And then the only other two things I had was a narrative that Lou had suggested, which I think really gets at the nature of the operation. I know a lot of that was submitted already in previous site plans, but even more so, identifying how you intend to maintain a single family residence on the property. You may have people from Longhouse as a group living in there. My understanding of the code is that that's perfectly acceptable, but I think it would be good to have something in the record that identifies that you do intend to keep the single family residence as the principal use on the site, because residential museum is accessory. And then the only other thing I had was I think after this meeting we'll all get together and talk about the easement, but it seems that issue has been addressed.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the easement doesn't have to delay the instant application that's before you with respect to the parking plan, because we're not contemplating a change of
Oh, no, I meant the scenic easement. I'm sorry. The structures in the scenic easement, I believe that's that's been addressed, but
And
we'll,
we'll have an updated survey showing that it's been removed, and I think that a site inspection would have shown also. I don't know were you able to see that during your site inspection?
When I went there, it looked like it might still be within the easement area, but we can review that, but I saw it coming off the fence. I think I have a picture of it at the end, but we don't have to get into
All
it
right,
now.
well,
You can
again,
see the
I know
fence
that-
there.
Martha's in the documentation.
Sure.
The fence actually goes up on the berm.
He's looking at the gate. The gate is in the easement, but
Yeah,
there's an
the fence
agreement
within
with the
the
town.
background there, but we can all review it together and.
Actually,
yeah, we'll figure it out. And, our indication since the planning department memo was written is that it has been addressed. So, but we'll work with the applicant, and any other town departments we need to figure out the status of that. But, again, I think, we need a revised site plan, identify the interior spaces, which I think they've already done, revise the parking calculation to reflect those interior spaces, and just address that, you're going to maintain a single family residence use on the site. So I'm trying to sort of summarize where we landed from the conversation. The board should, verify if that's their consensus, but just trying to kind of condense all of this into, a path forward.
Thanks for that, Eric. That's helpful. Is that it, Eric? You good?
For me, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we will ask those questions. The first, and these actually do cover some of the things Eric just mentioned. The first is, does the planning board agree that revised parking calculations should be provided? And we talked about that. It's going to be a function of how much exhibition space you determine there's going to be, and it needs to be modified from, the current use to the residential museum use way of calculating, right? So we do need that.
And eliminating spot 10.
Yes, we're going to get to that in a second, but yes, that's true. That's part of it. Does the planning board agree? Right now, we're going to get to it. Does the planning board agree the existing tree should be removed from the drive aisle?
No.
No.
I think everyone says
Leave the
no.
tree.
Leave the tree.
Leave the tree.
We fight for
Just
the
a small
trees.
point, the survey shows it as a 12-inch tree. It's grown since then, so you might want to.
No, that's caliper.
It's caliber,
It is.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's caliper.
not circumference.
Yeah, good.
The 12-inch trees have rights too, I'm just saying. All right, so, so we should really add to that question that we agree that it should be removed, but that we need to relocate or rethink, depending on how the calculations come out about parking in the new
Number 10.
circumstances, eliminate 10 and either relocate or eliminate.
Sure.
Okay, so everybody's good with that? Okay. Does the planning board agree that exterior lighting details should only be required for proposed lighting if applicable? I think we've heard tonight there is none. In fact, we'd sort of like to see that there will be none, right, as a condition. Does the planning board agree that the same material should be provided for all parking spaces? We already went through that. Yes, they're going to be, they are. Does the planning board agree that prohibited structures should be, I'm going to read this, but then I'm going to rewrite it. Does the planning board agree that prohibited structures should be removed from the scenic easement area, or the applicant should seek to modify the scenic easement? I think that question really should read, will the applicant provide a narrative about the conversations that took place that led to the agreement that you would move the deer fence and keep the gates and the grate, right? Just provide us with something that says what transpired. Just that one issue. Does the planning board agree that a recent certified survey should be provided?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we all said yes. We do need one of those.
And I think we skipped one. Maybe six. Six was skipped.
Does the planning board agree that existing and proposed work should be indicated accordingly with floor areas, setbacks, and coverage calculations? So I guess this gets to the question of site plan and survey, having accurate site plan and survey,
Yeah.
right?
Basically, yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
But see,
essentially.
I mean, Bruce can attest to this as an architect, that a survey and a site plan can't give you GFA. Only floor plans. An architect can do that.
Right, exactly.
And, which I will remind you, were part of the very first submission received by this board.
Okay. Does the planning board agree that the applicant should provide the total gross floor area dedicated to residential museum? We already said, yes, we do want to explore that idea as part of the narrative that was being discussed. Does the planning board agree that it is appropriate for the application to move forward under its existing use of a residential museum? I think we all agreed earlier that it meets the criteria in our view.
Yes.
So yes from everybody on that one. Does the planning board agree that the applicant should change the project title, detail, but yes, you need to do that. What did I miss, Eric, out of your points? I'm sorry.
I don't think anything.
Yeah.
I was more taking the questions and some of the other comments and condensing them.
Right, but did we miss anything in these questions that would be instructive at this point, or have we already made the point?
We got it.
Yeah, we've already made the point. Okay, I think we're.
Yeah, I think so. I think you got everything.
Okay. All right. I think that is a wrap for us tonight.
So I guess my next question for the board, because time is of the essence for Longhouse to do this work, is how can we move this forward in the most expeditious way? Because I believe that a lot of what you've asked for is completely ministerial. And there were narratives that were previously submitted, so we can get that very quickly in terms of the narratives. Again, the survey, we can also get probably within the next 2 weeks, all of that stuff submitted. Is it possible to tentatively schedule? And we know that the town board will be waiving the fees at the March 19th meeting. Could we potentially be tentatively deemed complete with a hearing date in April?
That question should be addressed to Eric.
Eric is the guy that does the scheduling, so we'll have to have all of that, right?
Yeah, I think what we should do is Chris and I will reach out to the applicant tomorrow, and we'll go through the file. We'll see what we have and what we don't have. We couldn't deem it complete and schedule a hearing tonight anyway because you don't have a resolution. The next meeting is within 2 weeks. It may be possible to get the information that we need in time and have it on, but we could also expedite things by when it is on the next agenda if, the planning department does suspect that the board will deem it complete, to also have the resolution to schedule the public hearing on for that night. But I think we need to coordinate and make sure that all of the items we need are submitted so that there is a complete application. We'll try to help the applicant expedite that as much as possible. We'll try to get this back on for the next meeting, but we can't just deem it complete when there are clearly incomplete items and when the board doesn't have a resolution to schedule a hearing.
That's fine. We appreciate any efforts that the board and the planning department can do to help us get to the logistical timeframe that we need. So I appreciate all that, and we'll do our part to get everything to you very quickly.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
For your time.
Okay, our next matter is the Quail Hill Farm Ag Improvement Site Plan. I am recused from this. I'm turning this over to our vice.
Back for the resolution?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't dream of it. I will come back, but I'll take some sustenance with me. Oh, yeah. No, hang on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So since Ed is recused from this, Sarah, this is you for the planning department and me for the planning board. So go ahead whenever you're ready. And I know the applicant is here.
Great. Good evening, everyone. So this is a initial site plan application that has been made for 3 phases of work. So phase 1 is a permeable parking area around 3 sides of the barn with native stones and gravel, 2 concrete pads on the north and south sides of the barn for washing produce, and a 12 by 20 concrete pad for a food storage cooler. Phase 2 includes relocating an existing 1,800 square foot greenhouse that will be relocated to the south side of the barn and expanded to 1,976 square feet. A second temporary greenhouse will be erected parallel to the first one and will also measure at 1,976 square feet and 10 feet high. Phase 3 involves the replacement of 8-foot-high deer fencing, measuring approximately 2,170 linear feet. It should be noted that this does not need site plan, but will need ARB review. The property is situated along Old Stone Highway, Side Hill Road, and Deep Lane in Amagansett. It is nearly 100% cleared of natural vegetation and contains mostly cultivated agricultural fields. All the neighboring properties are zoned residential, and the parcels to the immediate north, west, and south are also within the agricultural overlay district. The last site plan approval was last granted in December of 2019 for a 1.5-story barn with an office, a restroom with loft above, along with an IA septic system. As for seeker, this is a type 2 action and will not be subject to additional review. Onto dimensional conformance. The setbacks for a lot of this size are 90 feet from the front yard setback and 35 side and rear yard setback for accessory buildings. Currently, the closest proposed greenhouse is set back 52.2 feet, which does not meet the 90-foot front yard setback for accessory buildings or structures, and this would require approvals from the ZBA. A more suitable site layout may be to leave the greenhouse in its current location and construct the new one adjacent to the existing one behind the barn or to the north of the barn. The board and the applicant may wish to consider other alternatives, and the applicant may want to give us more information about why they would want to locate the greenhouses in that area to begin with. Onto building and total lot coverage. There are specific coverage and total coverage requirements for agricultural buildings and structures. The maximum lot coverage calculations appear incorrect on the site plan and should be fixed by the applicant. The proposed coverage calculation should also be included for all structures, although it does appear that the proposal will not exceed the coverage maximums. The new structures are proposed to be located in an area of the property which is covered by an agricultural easement. This easement prohibits all structures except those which are to be used for agricultural purposes. So the board should ensure that the intended nature of use of the proposed structures to ensure it is consistent with the definition of agriculture. However, it does appear that the proposal complies. The applicant will also need to submit an agricultural data statement, and that's per New York State Law Section 305B. And the intention of that is just to identify nearby farm operations and their owners, and assess potential impacts of farming activities on other farms. Onto the sanitary system. Installing an IA septic system on site was part of a 2019 site plan approval, with the total density load at the time being 390.6 gallons per day. The septic system is designed to handle a flow of 550 gallons per day. The applicant should clarify if any additional sanitary flow is anticipated and provide sanitary calculations. If increased flow is anticipated, Suffolk County Department of Health Services approval will be a condition of approval. Onto parking. The applicant indicated in their project description that they intend to have a permeable parking area made of native stone and gravel around the barn. 8 parking spaces are indicated on the site plan and appear dimensionally compliant with the town code. The planning department has referred the site plan to the fire marshal and is awaiting comment on ADA compliance. There are no established parking requirements in the town code for the addition of a greenhouse, but the board should discuss with the applicants whether additional parking is necessary. Onto site navigation. All aisles within parking areas shall have a minimum width of 24 feet when the parking spaces are at a 90-degree angle with the aisle. The current parking and navigation layout does not appear to meet this requirement, and the board should discuss whether an alternate layout may be more appropriate. The drive aisles, the drive aisle widths should, and site navigation should also be indicated on the site plan. Onto lighting, no information pertaining to proposed lighting has been submitted. The planning department suspects that no additional lighting is needed or proposed at this time, but the applicants should clarify this for the board. As for town engineer comments, per the March 4th, 2026 engineer review, the proposed site plans are preliminary in nature. The engineering comments are summarized as follows. The site plan lacks sufficient engineering aspects to allow for a complete technical assessment, and the reviewing engineer recommended the submission of additional items for further review, including a comprehensive grading and drainage plan to show how the site will be graded for the proposed improvements and how runoff will be managed. And secondly, engineering and construction details, including specifications for the proposed gravel and concrete areas, technical drawings and specifications for the proposed drainage system components, and subsurface details regarding the proposed clean sand for the proposed drainage wick. As mentioned, this has been referred to the fire marshal, and we are awaiting comments. And then finally, onto necessary elements of site plans. I've already reviewed some of this, but some of this information is new. Firstly, the finished floor elevations and ground elevations of buildings are not indicated. However, the planning department does not object to waiving this information. The planning department recommends that elevation plans or renderings which illustrate the appearance of the greenhouses be provided, as these accessory structures are proposed within public view and are roughly 1,800 square feet in size. The board should determine if it agrees. Secondly, the dimensions between each structure are not currently shown, but the planning department does not feel this information is necessary. The board should determine if it agrees. Thirdly, the applicant has provided information regarding the proposed parking. However, the dimensions of aisles and general circulation pattern with directional movement are not provided, as already mentioned. The applicant should also submit a comprehensive grading and drainage plan, as well as engineering and construction details related to the proposed gravel and concrete areas. And then lighting and landscaping plans haven't been provided yet. But if they're not proposing any additional landscaping or lighting at this time, and the board doesn't require any additional lighting or landscaping, the planning department recommends waiving this requirement, and the board should determine if they agree. And then finally, existing topography isn't shown on the site plan. There are some slopes on the property, especially towards the eastern portion. There's almost like a big bank, so it might be helpful in site plan review. Finally, the planning department notes that it appears the site plan submitted is based upon a previous but fairly recent survey. It is typical that a new survey would be required to see all existing structures and determine what would need approvals. Given that this is a large site and work is only being done in a specific area, the planning department does not have any opposition to waiving this requirement. The applicant should note that any structures not already shown on the survey attached to a CO should be removed or applied for at this time. So in conclusion, the planning department views this application as incomplete at this time and advises the applicant to submit revised and additional plans as well as a response letter. The bigger elements that we're looking for here are engineering plans as well as the other smaller items that are omitted on the site plan. Additional clarification is needed for parking and sanitary requirements, and the site layout may need to be adjusted in order to avoid structures within the front yard setback. And that's all. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Sarah. Would you like to be heard?
Hello, I'm Melanie Tebbins, Vice President of Peconic Land Trust, and Quail Hill Farm is a stewardship project of Peconic Land Trust. Our address is 296 Hampton Road, Southampton, New York, 11968. This is clearly preliminary plan. We have a lot of work to do. So thank you, Sarah and Louis, for your review and attention to all the detail. We will provide engineered plans outlining the comprehensive drainage and everything that the town engineer requested. We will also provide detail on the kind of greenhouse that we propose, and being a temporary structure, I guess we thought it didn't have to comply with the setback. So we need to clearly go back to the drawing board. We'll reevaluate the necessity of moving the existing greenhouse. I couldn't tell you at the moment the reason why. So we will take a closer look at that. We also do not expect that a deer fence or parking area around the barn would require additional sanitary flow. So I can say that, as well as the lighting and landscape. We don't anticipate doing any landscaping. It's a farm. It's an operating barn and farm. The proposed parking area made, with the native stone is really to help with the mud all around the barn. The tractors that are coming and going out of 3 sides of the barn. I did not think that an agricultural structure required to be compliant with all the specific, it's not like a paved parking. So to have specific parking spots, we didn't intend to do that because it's going to be native stone. So I guess I'm going to have to speak with the planning department to get clarification on what's really required for an agricultural structure, because I thought we were exempt from some of those requirements. But we will get better plans to you that outline how it's made, and the concrete that will be on either side of the barn is intended so that it's a better storage area. It's just dirt right now. So that will allow water to drain away from the barn and not erode. So we'll provide you the plans that have been requested. And we're working with Rayner Engineer, so we'll provide an updated survey. And it would be appreciated, though. I was a little, I'm not clear on the question about showing a survey of existing structures. I think it's a relatively new survey, so I don't know that. I'll have to just revisit that.
Yeah, I didn't see it as part of the application package, but we can work that out offline if it exists and get submitted.
Yeah, we have everything that's existing on our survey, so we'll just make sure you have the right one.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Sarah, for your really detailed memo, and thank you, Melanie, for answering pretty much all of my questions. I do have one question about the cement pads for washing vegetables and stuff. Will there be like sinks and bins out there? Do you have well water? Is Quail Hill all organic?
Quail Hill is organic. It's not certified organic.
Right.
But it is. We will have stainless steel basins that we use. 90% of the people who do belong to Quail Hill Farm go out and harvest in the field. They take home, but we do have some wholesaler accounts. We sell to some restaurants, so we have to wash the produce or sell for a box share.
Right.
So those vegetables need to be washed and then put into cold storage.
Okay.
So that would be just underneath the awning, according to food safety. And there, if anything's water is sloshing around, we would want it to drain away from the building and not be puddled up underneath the sinks.
And do people pick up their CSA boxes from that barn, or where do they pick them up?
No, they pick them up from 660 Old Stone Highway to the yellow shop. If you've ever been on the property, it's a 3-car garage that we used as the only barn structure for 35 years. That will continue to remain where the public come in and just park there, pick up their produce and leave.
Sorry, where do they pick up?
It's an older, it's kind of wooded, it's a yellow, kind of faded yellow structure.
There's a driveway.
You don't really see it from the road.
But it's away from this property.
Yeah, from this barn.
Is that it up here?
Up by the turn, by like that dead man's curve. I'm like,
you know.
I knew exactly where it is.
Side lane where some people drive, and the people who come to harvest come over here on Deep Lane and harvest off Birch Hill. Farm members that come to pick up come here and come down the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So the farm stand that, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The farm stand that's on the, is that being used at all? Or?
I'm not sure what you mean by the farm stand.
Well, it's designated as such on the plan.
Yeah, there's a small.
That's meant to be simply a display when the farm members come to harvest, they park there and it has a sign saying, maybe there's some extra eggplant there, but it's not like we sell to the public.
Okay.
It says, directs them where to go on to it, which field to harvest that.
Okay.
It's more informational.
Yeah, I think that, for a preliminary application, this is actually fairly complete. We've seen.
Oh, good.
We've seen worse. The greenhouse is the one big question I had. Why are you moving it so close to the road? Why not just leave it where it is?
My recollection, when this was discussed this past year, was for the view shed. Michael Light is the son of Deborah Light, who donated the property to us. He cares a lot about the property and is there. And when you're standing up behind the new timber frame barn and you are looking down across the view shed and you see the orchard in the distance,
yeah,
the greenhouse is in the way.
Yeah. So he wants, okay. But it is.
I need to have an agricultural reason because we need to extend the growing seasons by adding the second greenhouse. That has been the plan. And the question was, well, if we're going to continue to expand using the greenhouse, do we do it in that same location? And this was an alternate location we were thinking about. It has a dirt bottom because it is temporary in nature. So I didn't think it, we can't get any further into the valley, and if we go any further south, it would interfere with where we're growing. So that seemed the best alternate location, but I'm gonna have to explore how necessary it is.
Yeah, because that's a huge variance to go for.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't go for variance. It's not that critical.
Yeah, and then, I'm wondering if even you can shift the current greenhouse around a bit and then add the second one back there somehow.
Yeah, and
I'm
there's
not
also two smaller ones.
Designer.
Configuration.
The two smaller existing greenhouses have been revamped better than they were. And so we'll reevaluate if that's the better location to put a new greenhouse.
I think that's all. Those were the questions or comments that I had.
I just have one other question.
Oh, sure.
Sarah asked if additional parking would be required. So I feel like that's just a part of finding out what regulations really say are required.
There's a calculation and I'm not familiar enough with it off the top of my head, but Sarah probably is.
So there's no parking requirement for the addition of a greenhouse, but we would want to make sure that the parking meets the use of the property.
Of the barn.
So, how many people are coming in and out? Do you think 8 parking spaces would be sufficient to meet the needs of the property?
Right. We have no plans of expanding the number of seasonal staff, and they park both over at the yellow building up in the woods and sometimes down here at the barn. So 6 vehicles. We had 3 different farm vehicles, and then they had some vehicles. So they were partially up at the yellow building and then down here. So we had said that would be adequate. But I just wanted to make sure there wasn't particular calculation that I wasn't aware of. So I'll speak to.
I'm not sure if for the barn, that would have been determined when the barn was built, right?
Well, what's interesting is the barn was approved with no site work around it.
Oh, and so you're adding the parking.
Yeah, so it's like, well, we need to put down a better permeable surface. So we're coming in to make sure it's compliant and you're doing it right. But in terms of parking spots, I just am not clear if we really have to have a certain number with it being there.
Eric, do you know?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. There is no specific parking requirement. It really goes more by just what works on the site. So, I think when it was, when there was the previous site plan, there wasn't a certain amount of parking that was required for agriculture. You know what I mean? It was really just what do they need based on the way that they're going to operate. So, that was kind of a long-winded way of saying there is no codified.
So if there is parking proposed, it then has to comply with the dimensional requirements of the code.
Yep.
Okay, so if you're proposing parking, then it has to comply with the drive aisle and the turn whatever radius.
Okay, so I guess I'll have to find out if our plan meets your requirements. We're not going to have stripes or anything. It's just gravel,
that's fine.
Trucks, tractors. And I'd like to just clarify the relocation of the greenhouse. It isn't that willy-nilly. Where it is existing now, you see the orientation is one way. It's inefficient. It really does need to be turned.
Oh, right.
And so if we're going to turn it and add a second one, that was the thinking, well, let's maybe relocate it. So I'm recalling that it shouldn't have been that orientation to begin with.
Makes sense.
But we use it, it's very critical to the farm operations who are up and running and have food to
grow. Wonderful. Does anyone else on the board have any questions, comments?
The food storage cooler pad, is that used just for product that's grown on site, or do you bring in other products from the outside?
It's only for produce on site.
All right,
Flowers, and I'm
would
glad
you
you brought that up.
confirm that and make
Sure.
it?
But I was just told that we don't need the concrete pad after all. We might end up using a container, and that might just be a temporary structure that's there that can be relocated as needed, but it can be fitted out with a cool bot, so it's a cooler container, and we wouldn't need the concrete pad after all.
Okay.
So I'll clarify that.
Yeah, and would they need approval for a container then as an accessory structure?
Even if it's temporary?
Yeah. I mean, there's no, with few exceptions on special, unique structures, there's nothing in the code that distinguishes between temporary and permanent. So, if it's going to be there intermittently, it still needs to be shown on the site plan.
Okay.
And because, agricultural, when you wash the product, there are chemicals that drain out into the property. So we have a groundwater protection policy that needs to be followed.
Mm-hmm.
So when the engineer designs the drainage, I think they should be mindful of that.
Sure.
That they follow the groundwater protection policy.
In the groundwater protection zone, but
Yeah, you
we don't
are.
really use any chemicals on growing food, but I'll add a notation to that effect. We're aware of it.
Okay. And the 3 phases, you're proposing 3 phases.
At first I was going to submit 3 different applications, and I think Chris Stalker had recommended just put it all together, because the deer fencing we don't intend to do till the fall. The greenhouse was also maybe a summer, fall thing, and getting the parking fixed was sooner. And now I'm realizing maybe I should have separated them so we can get the parking done sooner. So we will get our application into the ARB for the deer fencing. It was there in a smaller location before the building of the barn. So in a way, it's a replacement of deer fencing, but it's expanded now. So I'll proceed with the ARB on the deer fencing. But I don't know if things will be approved any sooner if I say, can we just get the parking lot approved? I don't know, because we were not going to have an answer for the greenhouse immediately. I have to do a little internal discussion.
My understanding is that we can approve each phase, and then you can commence work on the phase. Is that right, Eric?
Yeah, so basically the option with the phase site plan, you sort of have, if you're unsure of the order and the timing of things, you really kind of have 2 options. One would be to submit a site plan that's only for one element of the work that you want to do right now. Go through the process, have an approval, meet all the conditions, get a building permit and a CO, and then if you wanted later, you could submit a new site plan for, new aspects. If you want to do phasing, the reason that that's permitted in the town code is so that you can time the issuance of building permits and COs subsequent to an approval. So even with a phased site plan, if you have, so for example, we have the work around the barn, the greenhouses and the deer fence, the planning board would be required to review that all as one project and would issue an approval all at once. So all of the information that we would need to get a complete application for all of those aspects would need to be handled. The benefit, though, of phasing is that then in a resolution of approval, the board could say, meet this condition and get a building permit for, the improvements around the barn. Then you can get a CO and you're fine to use those. You can wait a certain amount of time and then apply for the greenhouses, get a building permit, get a CO. It basically memorializes your approval of all 3 of those phases in one approval, but it has to be done all at once.
The approval has to be done all at once.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll stick with this plan, I think. We'll get working right away on addressing each of these items.
Go ahead, Lou.
That's all.
That's it. Abe? No, that's all I got. John, Reed?
Anything to add?
No, I guess I just question location of the greenhouses.
Yeah. We'll figure that out.
Okay, let's go through our questions. Does the planning board agree with the planning department's assessment of additional information that must be provided per town code 255-6-50 necessary elements? Yeah, I think we do.
Yes.
Does the planning board believe that alternatives should be considered for the layout of the proposed structures? I think we're all in agreement on that one. Does the planning board agree that the applicant should clarify if sanitary flow will increase? We didn't talk about that, but yes, we should. We would like to hear that. Does the planning board agree that the additional parking is necessary? I think that's up to the discretion of the applicant.
Yeah.
It doesn't really, yeah. And does the planning board, oh, there's more. Does the planning board agree that the parking area should be revised to increase access aisles? If you're proposing parking, yes, it has to meet all the dimensional requirements, so yes.
If I don't put any parking spots and just show it as gravel around the barn?
No, it's still considered parking.
Okay.
Even though it's not delineated, it still needs to meet all the parking regulations.
Okay,
Yeah, and I mean, I think it looks like you're close,
all right.
Yeah,
especially if you move the greenhouses.
yeah.
So,
Should comprehensive engineering plans be provided, including grading and drainage plans and additional construction details related to the proposed gravel and concrete areas? Yes. Does the planning board agree that the comprehensive lighting and landscaping plans can be waived? Yes.
yes.
And does the planning board agree that elevation plans for the greenhouses should be provided? Yes, I think we'd like to see what they look like. Thank you so much, Melanie. Thanks, Sarah. And let's get, is Sarah coming back in? Take care. Thank you. Yes, our fearless leader has returned.
Fearless.
Fearless.
Fearsome.
Fearsome leader, yes.
That's better.
Okay.
Fearless sounds careless.
Fearless.
It's a Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Right, like that.
Fearless leader.
Okay, we've already done one of the three resos. The first is the schedule of the public hearing for Ferncroft. That is you.
A public hearing is hereby scheduled to be held at Town Hall, 159 Pantego Road, East Hampton, on April 8th, 2026 at 6:30 PM, or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider the application of 9 South Ferncroft sub-waiver of premises identified on the Suffolk County Tax Map as parcel Suffolk County Tax Map number 30028-3-45. Files can be viewed and comments can be filed in accordance with the specifics in public hearing notice, which appears as part of the meeting record tonight and will be published in the paper of record no less than 10 days before said hearing date. The board will then vote to adopt the resolution to schedule a public hearing for the first application before rereading the script for the next application.
That's the John Thorson approach of reading the instructions. Okay, you know, I think you did pretty well. Next time I want hear ye, hear ye.
I have a bell.
Okay, motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, all right, well, you can second it. Oh, you're making a motion and you second.
I'll
Okay,
second.
all in favor of the Ferncroft
Aye.
public hearing? All right, good. Let's do that. All right, guess you get to do one slightly different, a resolution amending approval, the Gardner Marina.
On TV.
Yeah. Gardner
Gardner
Marina.
Marina.
There's no template for that.
Yeah, this one is, it's like the old, uh-oh.
You just have to make it up as he goes along.
This is like the old way.
Quiet, please. In the matter of the application of Gardner's Marina Site Plan, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-93-1-8. I have read the resolution amending approval, and I move for its adoption.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Yeah, that was.
This plastic.
No, no.
That's, that's for everybody.
for all of us.
Script. It's a common
Okay.
script. That's for
All
everyone.
right, so we have to approve Katie's wonderful minutes
They were great.
from last time. I don't have any comments. Does anyone have any other
I read them and
comments, changes? None? Okay. All right, a resolution to a resolution.
I'll make a motion
Motion
to
to approve. All right, all in favor of approving the minutes?
I,
Passed and carried, and then we need one
Make a
more.
motion to adjourn.
All in
second.
favor? Yeah, I need a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, very good.
Katie, was I to keep that?
Have a good night, board.